think it is about America, working in America, that is so great today?
Whether it's America or anywhere, our identities are tied up in what we do.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, what do you do?
Exactly. Right? It's a mandatory cocktail party chatter. But it's obviously deeper than that, too.
Sure.
Even if you're just talking to yourself and walking right up to the mirror and looking at whatever's gazing back, part of what you see is what you do. And that, too, is a thing that we can define, I think. How good or bad do we feel about ourselves vis-a-vis how we've chosen to make a buck? Again, it's the reason why you have really, really happy stockbrokers and really, really miserable stockbrokers and ditch diggers and teachers. It's really not what you do that ultimately defines you unless you decide that it is.
I see this crisis happening with these youngsters graduating high school. They're looking for a career, a job, college. Where do I go? And it's this crisis of decision making, right? We put so much pressure on you've got to figure it out now, and you've got to define, this is what will define you. This is part of your identity.
It's one of the most monumentally self-defeating, soul-deadening, stupid things we could ever foist upon a generation of people who, did you know what you were going to do at 17, 18? I'm 59. I'm still kind of figuring it out, and that's okay. I think we need to push kids to consider their life and to consider what they might do, to consider what's possible. And that, to me, was the most valuable part of the liberal arts education that I got. 2 years at a community college, followed by a brief spate of work, and then another couple of years at a university. I graduated in 1984 with a couple of degrees, communications and English, and the grand total was just under $12,000. Today, same schools, same course load, $92,000. Now, the pressure you talked about earlier has always been there. It's your life. What are you going to do?
Right.
But now there's a new layer. Now it's if you don't get the 4-year degree, if you don't fully embrace this path, you're going to settle for some kind of vocational consolation prize. And that means borrowing money, right? Vast sums of money. $1.7 trillion in student loans on the books, over 9 million open positions, none of which require a 4-year degree. Okay? So if you want to talk about a disconnect, we are still putting incredible pressure on kids to borrow sums of money that they will never be able to pay back in order to get educated for jobs that frankly don't exist anymore. We did this. We set the table. We let them look at work through the lens of good job, bad job, clean job, dirty job, aspirational job, embarrassing job. We then turned the screws a little tighter and said, look, if you don't take this seriously, if you don't go in this direction, you're going to wind up turning a wrench or doing something you don't want to do. So I don't think the skills gap is a great mystery. I think it's a result of what we value. I don't think student loans are a great mystery. I don't think the cost of college is a great mystery. If you were in charge of a university and you had an endless supply of people who were convinced they had no hope without the product you were selling, you'd charge whatever you could for it.
Yeah.
And so they do, and here we are.
You think part of the issue could be that we're over-educating people, and so they have a sense of entitlement when they leave with that degree and say, well, now I have to get a certain job because I've spent all this time educating myself. And so an entry-level position or something like that, no, I could never do that. So you have all these positions that are open. There might be plenty of people sitting there waiting to fill them, but that's below me because of my status now and all the money I've invested in this.
Well, there it is. Way leads on to way. And, Led Zeppelin, I think Stairway to Heaven, there's still time to change the road you're on. Well, that was true back then, right? You could always zig and you could always zag. And when I was in community college, it was $26 a credit. I mean, for $26 a credit, I can afford to be wrong. I can afford to experiment. And I did. I took philosophy. I took math. I took singing. I took art. I took everything. You know, you can't do that today.
Yeah.
If you do, then yeah, you're going to be like, well, I got 140 grand in debt. I better find a job in my major. More pressure.
Right.
More pressure. So yeah, I don't think we're overeducated. To answer your question, I think we're over-credentialed. I think we're having a weird love affair with credentials. And I think if you look at like the Varsity Blues scandal and what fueled that, it wasn't the desire of the parents or the kids to get the best possible education. They just wanted the pedigree. Because it's true, with the right pedigree, you get into the right parties, and you get into the right parties, and you meet the right people. And suddenly, you know, you're on a path that's accelerated, right? But that's not about education. You know, there's more education right now in both of our pockets. If I were to pull out my trusty cell phone, I could make the point and say, look, this is it. We have access now, all of us, to 98% of all of the known information in the world for free. I mean, I literally watched a lecture the other day from MIT for free, the same exact lecture that you pay whatever you pay. So, you know, the fact that this exists now, it didn't exist when I was in school, and I'm not saying this is a replacement for college. I'm just saying that if you have a skill that's in demand, and if you're still a fundamentally curious person, then you can scratch whatever itches. Education never stops. I get a lot of grief from people when I talk about this kind of thing. When they distill it right down to the bare bones, they say, "Oh, well."
So you're saying don't get educated, don't go to college, don't be smart.
That's what I get. Yeah. They're like, "Oh yeah, Mike's anti-education."
Yeah.
I'm not anti-education at all. To be absolutely clear, you have no hope without an education. But to assume that the only place you can get an education is within the halls of some university that's going to force you to borrow more money than you're ever going to be able to repay, that's not true. And happily, I can prove it. I have over 1,000 examples of people who my foundation has helped, and I have hundreds of anecdotal examples from dirty jobs. People who are very happy in their work, who are making a very comfortable living. There were over 40 people on that old show on Dirty Jobs who were multimillionaires. We never made a big deal of it because that wasn't the point of the show. But people are always surprised to hear that because the most successful people on that program didn't look like what successful people are supposed to look like. They were covered in mud or dirt or something much worse. But that doesn't mean that there's not a road to happiness or prosperity or job satisfaction in the dirt. And I see so many people just beating their heads against the wall, determined to carve out some kind of meaningful life that resonates with the degree they bought. And they're not happy. They're not happy. And I've got so many examples of people who my foundation has assisted who are happy.
Yeah.
Not because they chased their dream, but because they picked up a welding torch, figured out how to do something that was in demand, then figured out how to get good at it, and then figured out how to love it. As opposed to, oh gosh, what's my dream job? All I want to say broadly is that when people are trying to figure out the best path, set the table as honestly and broadly as you can, because opportunities are out there, and I think too many people never see the ones that are truly for sale.
That is great advice, particularly in the age of social media, allowing humans to be individuals, allowing them to find their identity in their own way.
Well, this is how virtue becomes.
The algorithm doesn't want that.
No, but you know what? The photo op does.
Sure.
Walk through any cubicle, any set of cubicles in any corporate, the long plastic hallways of America's corporations, and you'll see them. These accessories, right? They're hanging on the walls in conference rooms, and they say things like teamwork,
Yeah.
or efficiency, or persistence.
Yeah.
That's a great one, right? There's always some dude in a kayak.
Yeah.
Paddling alone on some glacier lake, staying the course.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, great. Staying the course only makes sense if you're going in the right direction. That idiot's liable to find himself face to face with a waterfall right around the bend, and then, stay the course, genius, and over he goes. So, you can take any bit of good advice, apply it broadly, and quickly realize you're doing more harm than good.
I think treating each circumstance, each individual as themselves, who they are, I think that's really the key to change over time, because that's what sparks and allows for actual conversation.
Yeah.
If we're not having the actual conversation because all we're doing is yelling at one another.
Guidance counselors, teachers, scoutmasters, ministers, politicians, they're talking to large groups. They can't really know.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't get too far out of their lane, because you never know who's listening.
Yeah.
This video is inspired by our PBS series, Reconnecting Roots.
Connect with me, Gabe McCauley, and Reconnecting Roots by visiting reconnectingroots.com, where you'll discover music, blogs, behind the scenes, our podcast, and more. Join our email list and never miss a beat.